Yo, what is going on, you deli bird that didn't wash their hands before leaving the bathroom? That's right, I won the Players Cup 3 championships. Players Cup 3. I won Players Cup 3 for the Pokemon TCG. That's me. And I played Rapid Strike Jirachi. And I'm going to get into this video. I'm just going to get into why I played Rapid Strike and also why I made the choices in the list that I made. Also, big shout out to Mike Fouché, who helped me not with just a list, but just talking over ideas before the event. You know, what did we both think was really good right now? What do we expect other people to play? What did we want to play? And his backup deck was, of course, Pikarom, because that's all he plays. And my backup deck was Tempozar, because that's what I've been playing most recently a ton to get to this point. I played it in the for most of my keys for the qualifiers, and then in the regional qualifiers, I played Tempozar as well. So it took me a long way. But at the end of the day, we expected the Australian players to bring Pikarom, so we were like, so for me personally, I was like, I don't want to play Tempozard, and I'm sure Mike would have been fine in the Pikarom mirror, but I don't want to play Tempozard into a bunch of Pikarom because that is a pretty poor matchup. But you know what deck is really good against Pikarom? It is Rapid Strike Urshifu, and that's one of the main reasons we wanted to bring it. Another one was I thought at that point Eternatus was probably the best overall deck in the format. My opinion has definitely changed on that, and I was like, well, that's another deck that is weak to fighting. So if a lot of people are on just like the, oh, Eternatus is just really good right now, I'm going to play Eternatus. And there was a couple of Eternatus in the event. I didn't hit any. I don't think Mike hit any of them. And I don't think either of us hit Pikarom until I finally hit Pikarom in the losers finals and winners finals. So it took us a little while to find those weak, fighting weak Pokemon. Of course, we're always picking up on the Dennis and Crobats. And Mike didn't quite have as good of a showing as me, of course, because I won and there's going to be one winner. Mike lost to Tord. Losers, in one of the losers rounds. I forget which one it was, but still, huge shout out to Mike for just talking over ideas and working on the list with me. So let's talk about why else I played this. It just has good matchups. Rapid Strike just has good matchups against almost everything. And decks we didn't expect to show up is Decidueye. We didn't expect Luke Metal to show up, which can be a bad matchup. So we didn't play the Mewtwo. We didn't play the Phoebe. Another card that's not in here is the Cheryl. If you play Cheryl, you have to kind of play Mewtwo to reuse it efficiently and be more efficient with the card. Instead of the Mewtwo, we just opted for like another Marnie, just to be more consistent in the early game. The only thing that Mewtwo really ever recovers is Marnie or Boss, and we both kind of agree there's enough Gust effects and there's enough to play around with the Gust effects to like be fine throughout games. So we don't need the Mewtwo. Mewtwo is just like not necessary. Another Marnie is usually what it's going to be recovering most aggressively, and if you just play smart around your Gust effects, you should be fine. So we didn't play the Mewtwo because Cheryl felt a little bit weak, specifically to me, because I wanted to play the Karate Belt, because I feel like it adds so many options in game. So I really want to play the Karate Belt, and with Cheryl, you definitely want to play heavier Air Balloon, because you want to basically have like your Urshifu established with an Air Balloon. They hit it, you heal it, you just retreat to your new Urshifu or retreat to Jirachi, Stellar Wish, get a net, get a switch, and try and minimize the cards you need when you're using the Cheryl. Because if they're Marning you on the turn before they hit you, you need like Cheryl it and then have an energy to attack and be able to move your Urshifu to the bench and get it back to the active or go to a new Urshifu. So you like need a decent amount established, and that's why Cheryl's so much better in the Cincino build, because you have like make do. Okay, Cheryl, Air Balloon, retreat, scoop up net, whatever. You have those plus like 4 or 5 cards to work with that like can get you to make you have an easy Cheryl turn. So that's why the Cheryl's so much better in the Cincino build of Urshifu than it is in the Jirachi build. Although it's not bad in the Jirachi build, it's just harder to make work. And if I played Cheryl, I probably would go to 2 Air Balloon and cut the Karate Belt. But I really do love the Karate Belt. I feel like it adds a lot of depth to the deck and gives you a whole ton of options. It's another reason we played the Reset Stamp, because I feel like it, once again, adds depth to a deck that a deck just doesn't really have when you don't play Reset Stamp. Not every deck should play Reset Stamp, but when you can include it, you definitely want to. We only included one because this deck definitely feels like you can get ahead pretty consistently sometimes, and you're the one getting Reset Stamp sometimes, as opposed to you Reset Stamping them. Matchups where you want the Reset Stamp is definitely like against Welder decks. That's where it's really powerful. So just having the one of copy for those situations is just really nice. I mean, the other one of hidden here, that's a thing, is a great catcher, but the great catcher is just really good. So that's why it's there. Other Pokemon, or like one as we chose to include in the list, was Mimikyu. We were like, we just really want to beat up on Mewtwo, because people might just roll through with these Mewtwo decks that are trying to beat up on Urshifu. Like, we both respected the Urshifu deck and knew it was a very powerful deck, you know, top 3 decks. So we're like, okay, people are gonna roll through with these decks with Mewtwo. We want to be able to just stop them. We have our Jirachi, but with people playing like Incineroar in their Mewtwo decks, they'd be like, okay, I didn't one-hit KO you with my Mewtwo, but you don't one-hit KO me. Oh, and now I have Incineroar's GX attack to one-hit KO whatever I want, right? So the Mimikyu like stops those kind of plays, stuff like that. We included the Mew just kind of for mirror match. It's really good against Cramorant. Anything that has Cramorant, it's just really nice to have Mew around for that. But this is definitely a card I think that is not necessary. Very good if there's a lot of like Mad Party floating around as well. It's really nice to have this with the Psy power against like Mad Party and stuff, but Mew is definitely not necessary. I think it's more necessary in the Cinccino build because you're really trying to protect your Cincinos from like anything. Cramorant snipes, mirror match, you don't want them to just go focus 2 Cincinos with the G-Max Rapid Flow. So Mewtwo, pretty good overall as a card, or no, Mew, pretty good as a card overall, but definitely not necessary in this build of Rapid Strike, I don't think. So if you're looking for something to cut, to add, this could be cut. The Giratina is also a card that I think is not necessary as well. It's very nice, can really have its moments, but with like Eternatus is being a good matchup, even with the weak guards, I think, as well as, so I'm just not playing weak guard anymore, which is one of the main reasons to include Giratina, was to get those weak guards off the Eternatus. I think like the Giratina can maybe be cut as well, although there is like a lot of special energy right now. Like it can come down very big, and come very big in the mirror match and stuff like that. So yeah, I would say like it can be cut, it can be kept. You know, I feel like same way about the Stamp with the Karate Belt. They're great cards. Giratina is a great card. Mew's a great card. They're all great cards, but you can only play 60 cards, so you got to figure out the other 60, or you got to figure out the 60 you want to play. But everything else should probably be kept. Like Jirachi's 3, 4, 3, another Jirachi here, Goon, Crobat. Like that should all stay. But those other cards are all like interchangeable. If you add the Mewtwo, you could probably cut a Research or a Marnie as well. Like if you really want to add the Mewtwo because you want to include Phoebe or you want to include Cheryl, then you cut a Research or a Marnie as well. Because I think once you add the Mewtwo, you can cut back a little bit on the draw supporters, because the Mewtwo does help out quite a bit when you have situations where you just don't have a draw supporter. So I wouldn't touch the energy line either. But yeah, that's the list. That's why we played the things we played, because it's all a bunch of good cards, and we didn't really know for sure what everyone was going to bring, except we expected no LMZ and no Decidueye. It just didn't make any sense for anyone to play those decks at the time. Well, their decks are super popular. Eternatus had the Phoebe in there to even give themselves a shot against both of those decks, so it made no sense for anyone to bring Eternatus or LMZ. It made no sense for anyone to bring LMZ or Decidueye, so we didn't tech for either of those matchups because it just didn't make any sense for anyone to bring them. So there's no reason for us to play Phoebe and play the Mewtwo and all that stuff to clunk up our deck that much more. Just be like, if they bring them, hopefully we don't hit them, but they shouldn't bring them because they probably want to do very well if they brought them. So didn't bring any answers for those decks because it just felt unnecessary. Yeah, and that's it. That's the deck. That's the list. It was just a really strong deck going into the tournament up against a lot of matchups. We expected the Australians to bring Pikarom. Like I said, I thought Eternatus was the best deck overall in the format, so why wouldn't a couple of people bring that? So that's weak to fighting as well. Got the Mew in here for the mirror match. That was the main thing. It's like, all right, we think this. Well, if we think this deck is that good, someone else is going to think this deck is that good, and a couple other people did. So let's put Mew in our deck, right? Let's put Mew in our list because we're not the only people who are going to think Rapid Strike Urshifu is this good, right? So put the Mew in there. We're like, well, if other people think it's that good, they might go the next step. They might want to tech against it. So let's add the Mimikyu in there. Basically everyone had Jirachi GX in their Rapid Strike Urshifu builds. They were like, okay, I mean, I don't want to get one hit KO by a Mewtwo. Put that in there. We went a step further, added the Mimikyu. I don't know who else. I mean, Tord had the Mimikyu, but didn't have the Jirachi GX. I'm not sure if Mitch brought the Mimikyu. Basically, everyone has the Mimikyu now in their builds of Rapid Strike Urshifu. But yeah, that's the list. I mean, to talk a little bit about my matchups, I guess, throughout the Players' Cup. Round 1, I hit Victini. I played pretty poorly. Made 2 major mistakes to, like, lose the game basically both times. And my opponent could have won even if I didn't make those mistakes, but I definitely would have been in quite a bit better of position if I hadn't made those misplays. So made quite a few mistakes against the Victini round 1. Round 2, I played pretty well against Spiritomb. Round 1 of losers, but round 2 for me. Played pretty good against the Spiritomb. Beat that. At the end of the game, it just kind of developed in a way where I was like, well, I hope my opponent doesn't have boss, and they didn't have boss, so thank goodness for that. Round 3, I played up against an ADP. Close one against the ADP, but it's always going to be close. It's really hard to have a game that is not close against ADP, it feels like. It's like always close, no matter what. Yeah, I had a really close one against the ADP, and then went up against the Mewtwo deck, Mewtwo Reshizard box deck. That was a pretty easy matchup, I'm not gonna lie. That was a pretty straightforward one. So pretty clean 2-0 there over the, I think I 2-0'd him. And maybe I got donked in the game, I just don't remember it. But yeah, pretty clean dub over the Mewtwo Reshizard box. Then I hit another ADP. Once again, it's ADP. It's 80, so it's gonna be close. It was another close one against another ADP. And then I hit Tord in the... we were playing Rapid Strike, but he was playing the Cinccino build. Could never find the Cheryl, which is basically what I was just playing for. I was like, all right, I'm just gonna keep hitting you, and if you find Cheryl, that stinks. But if you don't, that stinks for you. And he never found Cheryl, so that was pretty good. And that's basically how the matchup goes. I just sat there and Marnied him and stamped him, and I think there was definitely a point where I shouldn't have Marnied, where I Marnied, where I was like, I definitely knew it would only get him closer to Cheryl, but then I Marnied anyway, so I shouldn't have Marnied that turn. So yeah, didn't play perfect throughout the whole tournament for sure. Definitely made mistakes, but beat Tord, and then losers finals, grand finals. I got to finally play against Pikarom, where I went 9-0 against the Pikarom. None of them were playing stealthy hoods. That technology had not been developed yet, so we are still sitting on those no stealthy hood Pikarom. So pretty clean 9-0, but even with the stealthy hoods, it's definitely a favorable matchup. So I definitely feel like I could have still 9-0'd. Maybe would have dropped a game or two if they were both rocking stealthy hoods, but pretty good matchup no matter what. And yeah, beat the Pikaroms, and I became Players Cup 3 champion, and that's it. That's the whole story. That's the whole tale. Yep. Played Rapid Strike. I don't think I have anything else to say. Shout out to you guys for all the support as always, and I'll see you tomorrow.